Hey friends, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com. I've tried to adjust my settings and everything for those of you who have been saying that you aren't able to hear me very well. My voice has been compromised due to, polyps in my throat or something. So I've tried to make adjustments on my phone, so hopefully it will be improved, and please let me know that it is or isn't. The next thing is I've gotten so many well wishes and prayers, and I most sincerely appreciate those in regard to my brother. Those of you who may have been with me, long enough, I have complete control over the health and well-being of my brother, financial health and everything else. I'm his power of attorney in every direction that it's available. And recently, our birth name, our surname is Spanish. And my brother, my name at least is Marilyn. I was named after my mother, but my brother was named after my father. And my father had a very Spanish name. And my brother, who is severely disabled, and I'm his power of attorney, and so I have every right. I'm the one who would need to be giving approval for discussing his care, and so I'm going to give it for the greater good. My brother, who is severely disabled intellectually, physically, he's confined to a wheelchair. He's got Parkinson's disease. He's got a lot of problems, and he is dependent on social services. I'd have him live with me, except that I can't take care of him. My body's a wreck too, And he was targeted. And I know some people have come to me and said, I worked for social services, and I know that every now and then we will reappraise if someone is eligible. Okay? Now, the attorneys and I realize that that's not the case in this case. Number one, it was unleashed immediately after the one whose name I shall not speak and his goon made an assault to stop payment or to reevaluate, cut the fat in the system. I'll get into why they did that later, but for now, my brother's case comes up in June. That's when it's reevaluated, and that's when we get all our ducks in order. But for this to come up in January was highly irregular. After all the years that he's been in the system, since 2018, it's routinely in June. Only he and one other individual, which I have now since confirmed has a Hispanic name, were flagged in the middle of the cycle, immediately in January. They're the only two Hispanic individuals in this particular facility. So, I had to solicit the aid of an attorney. It was definitely worth it. And we jumped through hoops and we did everything we were supposed to do. We were never able to ever contact or, find out who originally sent the order, because that information was withheld from us. But whatever it was that we were able to do, the attorneys managed to do it. And my brother now is back in the system, and he'll be okay until the next time they decide to red flag him. It got so bad that people at the place were actually asking me, well, is your brother an American citizen? So, now, once we got him back in the Medicaid swing of things, of course, that triggered an alarm in the Medicare branch. And so now we're trying to correct the Medicare branch, which had a knee-jerk reaction to the Medicaid. But I think we've got that under control. Now, thank God for grandchildren, because in the period of time that before that had been resolved, I take care of one of my grandchildren, for 10 hours every Thursday. And when anyone who's with a child knows, especially if they're a toddler. He's 17 months old. He's definitely feeling himself, in the sense of testing what he can get away with at grandmom's house, at mommy and daddy's house, and everything like that. Plus, he's not feeling well. I could tell when they dropped him off. I was like, ooh, this baby. Yeah, I could tell, grandma's got radar. I could tell. I've raised children of my own, and I knew that there was something wrong. No, he's all right. Well, okay. Well, it turns out then, as the course of the day went on, that the rest of them came down with the flu. I wholeheartedly expect that I'm going to be catching the flu in a couple days. So I wanted to get this video out before I got so sick that I couldn't. At any rate, because he was like cranky and irritable and not feeling so good, and whenever you have a child in your care, especially a toddler, it's all in. You don't have time, to worry or concern yourself about politics. It was in the back of my mind. I'm not going to say it left my mind, but it was always in the back of my mind. But it helped me clear my brain, and it helped me, focus on the tasks at hand. Now, because my head was cleared that night, I decided I have to inform myself, just like every American needs to do, and people in foreign countries, maybe if you're interested in what's going on over here, you have to know. You have to find out what's happening. And it's our job as American citizens to do our own research. And one of the things I did initially, instinctually, was to contact my senators, right? Now, I'm in a Democratic pocket. And so it might seem that I'm preaching to the choir. I wrote to both of my both of my senators, and I even wrote to one in the previous area where I lived, just to give him my 2 cents, because he ran as a Democrat and then switched and became a Republican. And, it pissed a lot of us off when we, this was 2 years ago he did this, when I still lived in the other area. And so I wrote to him too. But anyway, I wrote to both of them that were mine, and I wrote to him. And you can't assume, if you live in a blue pocket, that your Democrat representative is going to vote against these choices that who is putting before us, right? Because they bow to pressure, perhaps. Maybe they are fearful, for themselves. But you know what? Our democracy is participatory, who and his cronies feed on our fear. They feed on our apathy. They're counting on us to go into a tailspin like I had, They count on it because that's how they thrive. All the things that who said he was going to do, none of it really happened. Okay, except for what he did do, which was to attack, to give the keys to our treasury to someone else who has no business having access to our treasury. That he did do. But all these other things like, I'm going to end birthright. Well, that didn't happen. You couldn't do it. It was blocked, right? I'm going off on a tangent. Yes, I want you to know that I am going to do a reading. I'll do it right now because I know some of you only come to me for the readings, demonstration tarot readings. So I will give that to you first. But for those of you who feel that you would really like to get a grip or a handle on what is really going on, I did research. I think it was solid research, and I'm going to share it with you. And I'll share it with you after the readings. So for those of you who are interested in understanding the bigger picture, because I know some of you in other countries aren't seeing what's happening here because our mainstream news programs aren't showing it. They're not showing the protests on every state capitol step. They're not showing you that. They're cowards? I don't know. It's possible. And even for those of you who are American citizens who just watch mainstream news and you're generally apathetic to things and, oh, it really doesn't affect me, or, oh, what can I do about it? You're not going to see it on the news either because it's not being presented on the news. And the only way that you know who and his cronies can win is if we let them. And by letting them, it means if we're apathetic and if we're feared into submission. But there are things we can do, and I'm going to spell it out, and I'm going to explain a lot of stuff that I didn't understand. But I'll get to that after the reading. I'll do a few readings. For those of you who've hung out with me for 11 minutes just for the reading, that's good. Okay, now as we all know, this is the weekend of the Super Bowl. So many of us need this distraction. So many of us need fun, right? We need to try to forget what's happening. Now, you can say what you want, these Super Bowls, attentions, so much money being given to the billionaires, part of the problem. I agree. But at the same time, a lot of working class people bought tickets to attend this thing, and I don't know. I think they deserve to have a good time. Now, right when we think we have a reprieve or a respite from all this horror that is happening, he declares that he's going to the Super Bowl. And so he will be a presence at the Super Bowl. So a way to ruin the Super Bowl. But I have concerns about that because aside from the fact that nobody really wants to, well, a lot of people really don't want to see his face at the Super Bowl. Aside from that, I'm seriously concerned for the health and well-being of everyone who's at the Super Bowl, because there's potential for stuff to go wrong. The first question I'm going to do is ask, and I'll go into my meditative place, and boy, oh boy, am I going to ask in earnest for direction and guidance and understanding of what whose presence at the Super Bowl will mean to it, how it will affect it, that kind of thing. For this reading, I've been very attracted to the Rosenwald deck in recent weeks because it is the everyday person's tarot deck. And most of us are everyday people. Most of us aren't in the 1%. Most of us fall solidly in the middle class, the hardest hit of all the classes, who pay the highest in proportion to what they earn. Okay, so most of us are in that category, as I am. and so I've been using decks like the Rosenwald or the Budapest for their energy of the common guy, the common gal. Let me go into my meditative place and we'll do the reading on what his presence, how his presence will affect the attendance of the Super Bowl. Alrighty. I have asked the universe to give us insights into what we need to know regarding his presence, how his presence at the Super Bowl will affect the people in attendance. Oof, I got a couple jumpers. I don't particularly concern myself with jumpers, but I do think it's interesting. I think I'm just going to do a 9-card spread without the quint cards. 9 cards is a lot to give us some ideas. What things to be concerned about, how to guard ourselves, be careful of. Two batons. Oh, excuse me. Two batons. That's not swords. The Rosenwald pip cards were taken from another deck and put with the Rosenwald Triumph cards. But I believe this, well, you know what? I'll have to check. I'll have to see if that's a sword or a baton, so please forgive me. Okay, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 coins. 9 batons. That's batons. Swords are curved, so this must be batons. Here we go. Okay, here we have the swords. Answered my question within the read. 8 swords. Ace of batons. Chariot. 4 batons. 7 swords. Remember, we have another 7 here in the chariot. Well, I'm not sure what the chariot is in this deck. I'll have to check, to be honest. Queen of Cups, or Page, excuse me, Page of Cups. I just recalled that in Marco's Rosenwald, there are no numbers on the Triumph cards, so we can assign them how we will, which I appreciate. So in this deck, not all Rosenwalds, some Rosenwalds have the numbers, but it was probably, a rejected sheet in a book because the numbers were not all properly assigned, right? I think we had 2 number 8s, for example. So I'm going to go with this particular deck. This one was published by Marco Benedetti, and assign the Triumph cards in the way that we're accustomed to seeing. Okay, who am I kidding? I ended up doing the quintessential cards. I can't help myself. It's interesting because the quintessential card for the entire spread is the Empress. And okay, we can, say it's female energy or whatever, however, and we can. However, we need to start seeing the Empress and other female cards in the deck as not just representing female energy, but representing power, period, just like the kings. So here we have secular power. We can take note that it's feminine energy. We do have a female page over here of cups, another one with feminine energy. So there's that. Front and center of the core 9, we have the Ace of Batons, an opportunity. An opportunity for what? Well, an opportunity for heroes, right? Whoever wins this Super Bowl will be participating in but parades where they appear in a chariot, wave to the happy folks from their town. Go Eagles, right? So it's coming front and center. It's coming from a place of an opportunity to celebrate, right? An opportunity to celebrate. We have 8 swords there. Now, swords and batons support one another. 8 is a number of stability. So a lack of chaos. So I'm happy to see that if we have to have a sword, see that it's at least the 8, in this row. Maybe it begins as a happy opportunity to celebrate. Now, swords can represent energy, aggression, the grid, power grid, can represent all kinds of things. We don't always know exactly how to apply it in the context of a question, but we have to keep these things in mind. It hasn't happened yet, so we don't really know exactly how it will apply, but just keep it in mind, particularly since we have the tower at the end of that row. So something that begins orderly as an opportunity for celebration and a parade and hailing our heroes. I don't necessarily think, sports participants are necessarily heroes, but to the people who are attending this and to the people who are watching it, ourselves included, there's a sense of, it's offering a sense of relief, right? And it seems, perhaps, that to some degree it may be ruined, or it may be dampened. There may be something about it that puts a dampness on the spirits. Now, I'm excited, as a side note, to see the green, because I'm in Eagles territory. I grew up in a Philadelphia suburb in Pennsylvania. And although I generally do not care who wins a ball game, at the moment, I think the country needs a diversion. And the game is a fun diversion that we don't want anybody messing with. It could be a tactic on his part to ruin it. It could be his intent to ruin it, because he knows there are going to be people who are not going to be happy to see him there. However, New Orleans is a red state. They're going to be happy to see him there. Pennsylvania ended up being a red state. However, Philadelphia, where the Phillies are from, they're a blue faction of a red state. So, and I think there are a certain amount of Eagles fans who will be there. And although some of them, unfortunately, will be happy to see him, there will be some who won't be. So he might be going just to show us who's boss. And just when we thought we could escape him, he's going to put his hand in it to remind us that he's the boss. Now, it's interesting to me that the judgment card appears as one of the quint caps for one of the rows, because for the month of February, if you recall, when I did a reading on the course of this year for the United States, February was represented by the judgment card. And here we are in February. And so I'm thinking that whatever the judgment card represented for February is going to happen at this game. Now, what could the judgment card represent? Well, let's look at the other cards to get clues of what aspect the judgment card could represent in this case. We have community participation, 2 teams, could be that, 2 teams in competition, a lot of money involved. And we have 2 9s, right? Now we have next to one another, for those of you who are trying to learn pips and you say, what are some tips? Follow videos, watch my videos, and you will learn how I interpret the cards. You may not learn, how everyone else does. It's not a universal thing. It's just how I interpret pip cards, okay? So we have earth and we have fire next to one another. Earth and fire are kind of neutral. We have earth right in the middle, If it was surrounded by water, I'd say, oh my gosh, But we don't. We have neutral participation here. So with 2 9s, one right next to the other, they don't contrast with one another and they don't support with one another. They just sort of coexist with one another. But the number 9 can, among other things, represent time, something coming to an end. Okay? Something just coming to an end. Where does the Judgment card come in the tarot? In this particular deck, it comes at the end. It is the ultimate card in the Rosenwald deck. So we have the suggestion of something coming to an end. Not only can we see the Judgment card next to the 2 9s as coming to an end, but something will be announced maybe at the end. Maybe there will be an announcement at the end. Maybe something will be made really clear at the end. Maybe there will be something that is brought to light. The bottom row, we have batons and swords. Batons and swords work together. So it's energy that feeds on each other. Swords and air would be air for me. Air and water, like coins and batons, don't support one another and they don't contrast with one another. They just sort of coexist with one another. But in this row, we also have a baton. And the baton and the energy of the Queen of Cups, the Page of Cups. If I said Queen before, I apologize. The Page of Cups. It could be a shake-up a little bit, especially since this is 7, which is an odd number. Now, 7 might not be destructive or as upsetting as, say, maybe a 5 might. Sometimes 7s can mean progress, and it could be a good thing. And we see it here in the Chariot. Now, some people have, said, well, Taylor Swift will also be in attendance, and hopefully she'll get more attention from the media than him, but I doubt it. And at any rate, I'm not sure if it represents Taylor Swift because she's there to root on the red team, which is the Kansas City, whatever they're called, and not the Eagles, right? So I don't think this represents her because she would be wearing red, right? Nevertheless, if I was reading this deck and it had no color, I could probably see this representing Taylor Swift, as competition for whose presence. It could be. It's next to the Fortitude card, which represents strength, unity. And she herself is looking at the swords, the 7 of Swords, whose direction is pointing us back to the opportunity for a community effort, back to the circle, like back to the beginning point of energy, an opportunity for energy to cheer on our heroes and have a good time. So she sort of redirects us up here back to where we started. And if we look at the end of this row again, we have the Tower, some kind of calamity. Now, I don't see, the Tower is enough to suggest that maybe there will be a glitch in communication because we have a few cards of the suit of air. So it could suggest something like that happening, a glitch maybe. It could suggest, since it falls under the Triumph card, some type of unfavorable announcement being made. And I don't know. We are seeing these cards in color, and there are two prominent blue images here. Is it possible that a secular leader, perhaps someone like Miss Kamala Harris or even Mrs. Clinton, could they be present there? Could they be present there? It would be awesome if they were there, wouldn't it? It would be awesome if powerful secular females were there, along with Miss Swift. It would be so awesome. Perhaps to offset, to some degree, his perceived feeling of power. However, I do believe that this rose suggests that his presence there, the primary purpose of his presence, is to show us all who's boss. I think so. I think it's possible that other secular individuals might be present there, which might be interesting. I'm wondering if there's, because the judgment card, in the context of a question, it could mean a lot. It could mean like highlighting something. It could mean bringing something to bringing something to light, Now, I don't see the sun card. I don't see the star card. Well, I do see the sun and the moon, appearing in the tower, and that falls right under the judgment card. So there could be some kind of highlighting of something. But I do think this row in particular suggests that his presence there is to remind us of who's the boss. And some of the other individuals who may be present, who may detract from that, may be an interesting highlight, a feature of the game. But I don't necessarily see calamity. I don't necessarily see catastrophe. There's potential for disagreeableness, absolutely. But, I see the 8 being a stable number. The 2 is stable. Conflict, but I see that more as friendly competition, Friendly competition, a lot of money at stake here, right? 7 is an escalation. Well, it's a de-escalation because it comes later. So it's a de-escalation of energy, but it redirects us back to the original part where we started. So it's a good thing. I don't think calamity, but disruption. I think there could be disruption. I think the whole point of his being there is to just remind us who he is and that he's in charge. And I hope that these cards represent secular individuals who might make an appearance and might get airtime to piss him off, right? Let's hope. But, the media as it is, and there's so much money in sports that I'm willing to bet that they don't have the courage to deflate him, to take the opportunity here to deflate him. I don't think they have the courage. But we'll see. Now, this is already 35 minutes, and I have a feeling that most of you won't stick around for my other part that I was mentioning. So I'm going to do a video strictly on my research of what is going on. Let me flip the camera. I've done a little bit of research, and the purpose of which is to empower me and to empower all of us. And, you know, some of you are paralyzed with fear. See? Some of us are paralyzed. I was paralyzed for a second, you know, but I had to jump into to take swift action because my life was immediately affected with my brother. So I had to take swift action. But that's not enough. I'm not stopping there. Just because I've been taken care of or my brother's been taken care of doesn't mean that my responsibility as an American citizen ends there. So I'm going to continue my message in a video, which I am not going to release publicly. It will only be for those of you who hung in there for 36 minutes and are willing to listen. I'm going to link that video down below. It won't be a tarot video, okay? But if you want to know what's going on in the United States, and if you're an American citizen and you want to know what you can do, the message below will empower you. Until next time, friends, peace, stay well, be kind, and do the right thing.